Something happened at Brown's minicamp that the league needs to pay attention to, not because of what Shedeur Sanders did, though we'll get to that, but because of what Dillon Gabriel did, or more accurately, what he couldn't do. I've watched a lot of quarterback competitions over the years. I've seen guys have rough days, off sessions, moments where the game just doesn't cooperate. What I watched from Gabriel at minicamp wasn't a rough day. It was something more revealing than that. It was a player showing you exactly who he is under evaluation conditions, and what he showed was not remotely close to what this competition required from him. Let me walk you through it from the beginning, because the details matter here, and I don't want to skip past anything. Gabriel spent the early portion of practice working with the second-team offense. That positioning alone is information. The coaching staff under Todd Monken isn't managing this situation the way Kevin Stefanski managed it, and the depth chart signal embedded in how reps were distributed was visible to everyone present. Shedeur Sanders was running the first-team offense. Dillon Gabriel was waiting for his turn with the twos. That's not a neutral organizational statement. That's a coaching staff communicating its current assessment through practice structure before a single pass was thrown in competitive periods. When Gabriel finally got his 7-on-7 reps, he went 3 for 6 with 2 interceptions. I want to sit with that for a moment rather than rushing past it, because in the context of a quarterback competition for a starting job on an NFL roster, that stat line isn't just bad, it's diagnostic. 7-on-7 is not the most pressure-filled environment a quarterback faces in practice. There's no pass rush. The timing windows are cleaner. The reads are simpler. It is, by design, one of the more forgiving competitive situations a quarterback encounters during camp, and Gabriel managed to throw 2 interceptions in it while completing exactly half of his attempts. That is not a player having a bad day. That is a player revealing a gap between the level he's currently operating at and the level this job demands. But here's what I found even more telling than the numbers, and I think this is the part that gets glossed over when people just read the stat line and move on. It was the way the bad plays happened. Watch the film closely and you see Gabriel go through his pre-snap routine. Man in motion, look right, look left, all the visual indicators of a quarterback executing a structured play. The mechanics looked correct from the outside. The footwork was there. The setup was there. And then, when the moment came to actually deliver the football, everything that looked correct on the surface fell apart in the execution. The throw waffled. The velocity died somewhere between his hand and the intended target. The ball arrived without authority, without conviction, without the zip that tells a receiver the quarterback trusted the window and attacked it. It floated. And when a throw floats at the NFL level, it doesn't just get incomplete, it gets intercepted. And that's exactly what happened. The ball got plucked out of the air like it was placed there for the defense's convenience. You cannot manufacture arm strength through correct footwork. You cannot fake the confidence behind a throw by going through the right pre-snap motions. What Gabriel's mechanics looked like from 10 yards away and what his arm actually produced when he pulled the trigger were 2 completely different things, and the gap between those 2 things is not a mechanical problem you fix with a throwing coach between now and week 1. That gap lives deeper than mechanics. It lives in competitive readiness, in the psychological commitment required to attack a window when the coverage is tight and the moment is real, and in the accumulated preparation that either gives a quarterback the internal certainty to trust his arm or doesn't. Gabriel's throws told the truth about his preparation, even when nothing else about his day did. Then came the 11-on-11 period. And I genuinely need you to understand what this moment represented for Gabriel's standing in this competition. 11-on-11 is where the evaluation becomes real. Full offense against full defense, routes developing at game speed, actual coverage reads, actual pressure considerations even without live rushing. This was Gabriel's opportunity to push back against everything the 7-on-7 session had already communicated about where he stood. He had a full offense around him. He had real routes being run by real receivers. He had everything he needed to make one convincing throw that reminded everyone in that facility why he was part of this conversation. Instead, he ended his 11-on-11 reps with an interception thrown to a tryout player. Not a starter, not a proven NFL corner with years of experience diagnosing quarterback tendencies. A tryout player, someone who showed up to minicamp without a guaranteed roster spot, who was there fighting for a chance to earn a contract, and who Gabriel handed a career highlight to on his final throw of the session. I've been around football long enough to know that there are moments in a quarterback competition that don't wash off. Bad days fade. Bad games become part of a larger sample. But there are specific moments, particularly moments that happen in front of an entire coaching staff watching with evaluative intent, that follow a quarterback through the process regardless of what comes after. Getting intercepted by a tryout player on your final 11-on-11 throw of the day at minicamp while competing for a starting job is one of those moments. That is a moment Todd Monken remembers. That is a moment the offensive staff references. And it happened in the same session where Shedeur Sanders was on the other end of the practice field, making the first-team offense move with a fluency and command that made the whole thing look inevitable. That contrast is the real story of what happened at Brown's minicamp, and I want to describe it as clearly as I can, because I think it's the image that matters most coming out of this day. Shedeur Sanders running the first-team offense with the kind of settled, unhurried authority that you simply cannot teach a quarterback, the kind that only comes from a player who has fully internalized a system and trusts himself completely within it. No hesitation before the snap, no panic after the snap, just a quarterback processing information and delivering the ball with the timing and placement the concept requires. On the other field, Dillon Gabriel floating, throws into coverage, and watching them end up in the hands of people who aren't even on the roster yet. Those two images existed simultaneously in the same practice facility on the same afternoon. Everyone with a clipboard saw both of them, and nobody who watched both of them walked away genuinely uncertain about what they had just observed. Now I want to talk about what happened after practice, because the press conference exchanges revealed something that the on-field performance only implied. Gabriel was asked where he spent his offseason. His answer, delivered without apparent awareness of how it would land, was essentially that he was around, he was places. That's it. No mention of film work, no reference to the specific mechanical adjustments he prioritized, no discussion of how he approached learning a new offensive system under a new coordinator. Just a vague acknowledgement that he existed somewhere during the months between the end of last season and the beginning of minicamp. I need you to feel how significant that answer is in context. This is a man competing for an NFL starting job who just had arguably the worst minicamp session of his professional career, and when given the natural opportunity in a press conference setting to at least project the image of someone who spent his offseason grinding with professional urgency, he offered nothing. Not because he was protecting proprietary preparation information, because there wasn't anything specific to protect. Shedeur Sanders was asked the same kind of question about his offseason approach, and the difference in the two answers was not subtle. Shedeur was specific. He referenced what he attacked, what he prioritized, what he knows about himself as a preparation process. He answered like a player who actually did something with his time and could recall it with precision because the work was real and recent. Gabriel answered like someone who was asked to describe an offseason they'd prefer not to think about too carefully. One player knew exactly what he'd built. The other was hoping no one pushed hard enough to find out what hadn't been built at all. Then Gabriel got asked about the new playbook, about what feels different, what challenged him, what excited him about Monken's system. And he responded with the kind of answer that sounds like an answer until you realize it contains absolutely no information. Similarities in concepts, different ways of progressing through plays, looking forward to continuing to learn. Day 1. These are the words a quarterback uses when he doesn't actually know the playbook well enough to say anything specific about it. A player who spent genuine time in a new system over an offseason can tell you exactly what's different and exactly what challenged him, because the difficulty of mastering something new leaves specific memories. It leaves specific moments of confusion that became clarity. Gabriel had none of that to offer because the off-season work that would have produced those specific memories apparently wasn't prioritized. And here's the part of this story that I think deserves more honest examination than it typically gets because it connects what happened at minicamp to what happened all of last season in a way that matters. Gabriel benefited enormously from the environment Kevin Stefanski created around the Browns' quarterback room last year, the rep distribution that kept Shedeur from building momentum, the organizational positioning that kept Gabriel relevant in the competition conversation, the narrative management that made it seem like a genuinely close evaluation when the foundational conditions were never actually equal. Gabriel didn't just observe that environment, he operated within it, collected its advantages, kept his head down, and said nothing publicly about the obvious unfairness of how his competition was being structured. He was positioned ahead of a higher-drafted, more talented quarterback through organizational decisions that had nothing to do with on-field merit, and he accepted every benefit of that positioning without a word. Now Kevin Stefanski is gone. Todd Monken is running this operation. And Monken's practice structure, Shedeur on the ones, Gabriel waiting for second-team reps, communicates precisely how a coaching staff evaluates a quarterback competition when there is no agenda behind the evaluation. When the only thing being measured is what actually happens on the field, the results speak with a clarity that organizational politics previously obscured. Gabriel went 3 for 6 with 2 interceptions in 7-on-7. He got picked by a tryout player in 11-on-11. He answered press conference questions with the vagueness of someone who spent his off-season places and hoped the new coaching staff wouldn't notice. Every piece of that picture points in the same direction. Shedeur Sanders did not need Dillon Gabriel to fail in order to win this competition. He was already winning it on his own terms, through his own preparation, through the command he showed running an offense that the coaching staff clearly trusts him to direct. The first-team reps weren't a gift. They were a reflection of what the evaluation had already produced. The film from this minicamp is not ambiguous. The coaching staff's rep distribution is not ambiguous. The contrast between a quarterback who spent his offseason attacking his preparation and a quarterback who was places is not ambiguous. And the difference between a player who answers questions with specificity because the work was real and a player who speaks in circles because there's nothing specific to reference, that's not ambiguous either. What minicamp confirmed is something that the evidence has been building toward for months. This competition has a direction, and it was visible in every rep, every throw, every press conference answer, and every coaching decision about who lines up with which group. Dillon Gabriel had his opportunity to make this genuinely competitive. He had the reps, he had the setting, he had the press conference time afterward to at least project professional urgency. He used none of it effectively. And Shedeur Sanders, running the ones with the settled authority of a quarterback who has fully earned his position in this building, didn't even need Gabriel to struggle in order to make the case for himself. He made it independently, convincingly, and on his own terms. That's the difference between a player competing for a job and a player who already has it.